Hi there, it's Tara Bianca with Be Light Transformative Therapy, and today I want to welcome you to the third video in my series devoted completely to using the OTTO 128Hz tuning fork on the body. I've decided for this series to just sort of work my way down from the top of the head to the tips of the toes. So today we are going to focus in on the cervical spine, or the back of the neck, as well as the bones that make up our shoulder girdle. So we're going to spend some time working on the clavicles, and if you can reach them easily, the scapulae, or the shoulder blades. Let's jump in. If you missed the first two videos in this series, you can find them right here in the OTTO 128 Tuning Fork playlist. Video 1 tells you what this whole series is all about, as well as focusing in on the points of the face. And then video 2 focuses more in on the points of the skull. I've once again included all precautions and contraindications in the video description below. Please take a few moments to read through those, especially if you have any uncertainty at all about using the tuning fork on your body. I want you guys to be as safe as possible with this practice. Okay, so let's continue where we left off in video 2 at the base of the skull. Today, we're going to work our way down the bones of the cervical spine, as well as on the clavicles, aka your collarbones, and if you can reach them, also on your scapulae, aka your shoulder blades. So just like we did in episode 2, I want you to begin by simply palpating the area where we're going to be using the tuning fork. So starting to get familiar with what your cervical spine or your posterior neck feels like. And this does not require hard pressure. Just gently starting to palpate, soft finger pads, feeling whatever you're going to feel in the back of your neck. So, our cervical spine consists of 7 cervical vertebrae, C1 to C7. And all of these vertebrae, except for C1, have this bone that juts straight back, so straight towards the camera, straight posteriorly. We call that bone the spinous process, and it's very easy to feel. So you may remember from episode number 2 that when we extend our head back a little bit, it slackens that nuchal ligament, that dense cable that you feel in your neck, and it allows you to sink towards the bone more so that you can really feel the contours of those bones. And if I bring my chin more to my chest into flexion, you can feel how that cable pushes your fingers right out, and now it makes it harder to feel the bones. So as you're using your tuning fork on your neck today, you want to sit up nice and tall for sure, and you may even want to just let your neck fall back just a little bit. Let your head fall back just a little, slackening that nuchal ligament so that you can really feel with greater precision each of those vertebrae. So now, these guys are pretty small, right? Especially on me. So my spinous processes are only going to be about a finger's distance apart from each other, right? One after the other. So we are going to use the tuning fork on each of those spinous processes. And if you don't feel exactly where you are today, again, it's fine. It doesn't matter if you're off by a millimeter or even an inch. You're always going to be working on something, and there's always going to be some value to working on all these structures in your neck. So I'm giving us a roadmap, but you can always feel free to divert and explore on your own. Okay, so how do we begin? So remember, I said that C1 doesn't have a spinous process. So this is how we palpate for C2. We find that hollow at the base of the skull, just like we did in episode number 2. You go into a little bit of extension with your head, and you feel, oh, there's that hollow space at the base of my skull. And now if I pull my fingers down just a little bit this direction, if I scoop them downward, I run into a bone. And that first bone that you run into that's sticking out is the spinous process of your C2. So that's going to be our starting point, and then we're going to work our way down one vertebra at a time until we get to the big bump that sticks out. So the one that sticks out the most is usually C7 on most people. That's where we're going to go to. Okay, so grab your tuning fork and let's begin. So I found that hollow at the base of my skull. I scoop down a little bit and I feel the spinous process of C2. I'm going to mark it with my finger and then I'm going to put my tuning fork right on that bone. And while I'm working on this bone, I'm keeping my head in a little bit of extension just to slacken that really cable-like ligament so that the tuning fork has a better chance to make contact with that spinous process. I'm going to let the fork vibrate through its cycle. And then I'm going to mark where I was with my other hand. I'm going to strike the fork again. And I'm going to go right beneath that finger. So remember, these bones are close to each other. We're going to go one finger at a time, working our way down the spine. So we're going to do 6 points in total. C2 through C7. And whenever the vibration runs out, you just mark where you were with your other hand. Strike your fork and you go directly beneath that finger. I'm allowing my head to fall back just a little to slacken that ligament so I can really make contact between the tuning fork and the bone. And otherwise, you want that nice, straight yet relaxed posture. Keeping a good oral posture, gentle contact with the tip of the tongue on the roof of the mouth. Breathing gently, softly, quietly in and out through your nose. So I'm marking that vertebra and then I'm going one beneath it. And just noticing how I feel those sound waves traveling through my body. What else is that space connected to for me? What is the experience systemically beyond this singular point? And I'm marking that spot. And I'm moving down vertebra by vertebra. And I'm just marking that spot with my finger. And we've got one more to go. So you should be at that bone that protrudes posteriorly the most, the one that sticks back the most, the one that feels like a little hump on the back of your neck. And that's your cervical spine. If you live with someone or have a buddy that you can partner up with, this can also be nice to allow your partner to work on your spine for you so that you can allow your arms and the rest of your body to relax. Next up, I want to work on the 2 clavicles or collarbones. So again, let's just explore this bone with our fingertips first before we even use the tuning fork here. What does this bone feel like? Can you feel where the ridges are, where you could potentially make contact with the fork? Do you feel how the collarbones come out and then dip in and then come out again. It kind of has an S shape. Just getting comfortable with the contours of these bones. All the way out to the tips of the shoulders. So we are going to work from the SC joints, the sternoclavicular joints, right here in the middle. So on me, it's very easy to see them. There's a lot of muscular attachment here on me, and those bones really stick up. So they're pretty easy to see on me, and they should be very easy to feel. And then we're going to do 5 points, working our way out towards the corner of the shoulder. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're going to work on what we call the acromion, which is this flat ridge at the corner of your shoulder. I'll talk you through it when we get there. This bone is actually part of your scapula or your wing, your shoulder blade. And I'll help you find it when we get to that part. Okay, so grab your tuning fork. I'm going to start on my left, but you could start on your right or your left side. We're going to start at the SC joint on whichever side you choose. So this is a little hard to see. You have some options with the clavicle. You can either come from the top and kind of lean onto it, or you can find it and come directly in at it. So you can either come this direction or this direction. Your choice, whatever feels more comfortable to you. I kind of like to get the fork on top of it and allow the weight of the fork to sink down. So allowing it to resonate into the SC joint, I'm actually going to strike my fork one more time because I was talking too much and I lost the vibration. So I find that bony area right at the midline. And I just allow the fork to sink on top of it, gentle pressure. And I really feel this reverberating through my whole body. And we're going to, point by point, work our way out towards the corner of the shoulder. So we're going to take 5 points, working our way out toward the shoulder. This was point 1. So I was here. I'm just going to move out about 1 inch. And again, I'm going to come at it from the top, but you can choose to come at it from the front if you prefer. And you could, maybe it's easier to use the opposite hand, your choice. Whichever hand is more comfortable for you. So either coming from the front or coming from the top. And this goes for every point that we're going to do along the clavicle. So that's 2 points. We're going to do 3 more. So that was 2. I'm going to go mid-clavicle. Again, it doesn't take a lot of pressure. You don't have to dig the tuning fork into the tissue. You just have to make gentle contact with the bone. We're going to do 2 more points, working our way out toward the shoulder. So I was mid-clavicle. I'm going to work out a little bit more. I'll try to lean back a little so you can see where I am. I'm kind of at the strap of my tank top at this point. Again, with this downward pressure, but you could also come at it from the front. And I'm going to do 1 more point, working my way out a little bit more. So kind of to the other side of my tank top strap now. I'm going to lift my elbows so you can see. Okay. Again, it doesn't have to be exact, and your body is not carved exactly like my body. So you just follow the line of the bone. Let the bone guide you. Good, so that was 5 points, working from the midpoint, the SC joint, all the way out to the corner of the shoulder. And now I want you to put the fork down again for a second, and I want you just to feel the edge of this shoulder. So here you have your AC joint, right? That's that bump that sticks up at the corners of the shoulder, right? Those two bumps. If you go a little lateral, falling off the SC joint, and you just gently rock back and forth on that bone, you'll feel it's like a plateau, right? It's a very flat bone. That's the acromion, which connects to your shoulder blade, to your scapula. So we're going to put the fork right on that flat plateau, that bone, that acromion. So go ahead and grab your fork again. So I'm striking the fork and I'm finding that flat bone. And I'm letting it resonate through the shoulder. And this one feels good to me, and I feel like I lost it a little because I was talking. So I'm going to do it one more time, and I invite you to do it a second time if you want. Remember that it's okay to do 1 or 2 times in the same spot. So finding that flat part of the shoulder. It's a wide bone again, right? It has some dimension to it. So it's not necessarily one point that you're looking for. And now as long as we're at this right shoulder, if you have the mobility and you feel comfortable reaching behind you and working behind you, I'm going to show you a few points on the scapula. Now, if you have any limitation in your shoulder, this might be uncomfortable, so just skip this part, no problem. Or again, if you have a buddy at home or a partner that you live with, maybe you can have them use the tuning fork on your scapula or your shoulder blade for you. Okay, so we're going to start to work on this right shoulder blade. So you were at your acromion, which was that flat plateau on the shoulder, and now just fall off that bone and start to follow it. What do you feel back here? Just palpate a little bit your shoulder blade. What do you feel? Do you feel how there is another kind of bony ridge? It feels very similar to your clavicle, sort of a thin, long bone. That's the spine of your scapula, the spine of your shoulder blade. And so I want to work 3 points on top of the spine of the scapula. Okay? So you're going to take your tuning fork, just like I did on my clavicle where I sunk down on top of the bone. You're going to sink down on top of this bone. We're going to do 3 points, sinking down on top of the bone and sinking down on top of the bone. So go ahead and grab your tuning fork again. And I'm going to start laterally, start out. And it looks like I'm pressing in, which I am, but I'm also coming down on top of that bone. So the bone is catching the weight of the tuning fork. And again, if this feels uncomfortable for you, or you feel like you're using too much power, or you're contorting your body too much to get there, just leave it alone. There's enough points on the front of the body to work on to still create a systemic response. And now I'm going to keep working my way in. I'm on top of that bone. The bone is catching me. Just breathing gently. Again, I want to be thorough in our exploration together so you guys feel confident about exploring on your own. But maybe not all of these areas resonate with you, and that's fine. But I'd rather give you more and let you decide what works for you and what doesn't. And we're going to do one more point on the top part of that scapula, working towards midline. So I still feel that bone underneath the tuning fork. It's kind of catching the fork and preventing it from falling towards the floor. Feels good. So these are the 3 points on top of the spine of the scapula. And then, if it's available to you, I'd like to do 1 point underneath the spine of the scapula, inferior to the spine of the scapula. So this muscle here is called your infraspinatus, but it's very shallow. And if we just put the fork there, you're going to make easy contact with the bone underneath that muscle. So you don't have to be specific. Here's that bony ridge again. I'm coming up underneath it. And I'm just going to find one point underneath that ridge, and I'm going to go for it. And if it's stressing you out to find the spot or you feel like you're doing it wrong, again, don't stress about it. You can just skip this part. But if you feel like you have a pretty good idea of the anatomy of your shoulder blade, then I invite you to go for it. Okay, good. We're going to do the other side. Okay, so now I'm going to start to work on the right clavicle, and you're going to work on whichever clavicle you didn't do already. So starting at that SC joint, that bone that really sticks out, I'm coming from the top and leaning the weight down on top of that bone. And I'm just rotating my head so that you can see better where I'm positioning the fork. Remember, if you don't like this, you can always come in directly at the bone. Whichever is more comfortable for your arm and whichever one you feel more connected to, more strongly with. And we're just going to move our way out towards the corner of the shoulder, 5 points. So this was point 1. I'm just going to move about an inch out. And I'm just going to drop the weight on top of the clavicle. If you push too hard, you'll actually slip right off. So you just want to make gentle contact and let the vibration travel through. And that's point 2. We're going to keep moving out 1 inch at a time. So mid-clavicle for me is very dramatic. I really feel this reverberate through my chest. I really feel it changing my breathing. But you feel what you feel. And we're going to keep moving out towards the shoulder. So point 4, I'm on this one side of the strap of my tank top. This position is nice too because I get the auditory aspect of it. I really can hear the weights of the tuning fork ringing and I feel the vibration simultaneously. So it's a nice dual action technique. And we're going to do one more point, so to the other side of the tank top. Point 5. And from here, we're going to go to the corner of the shoulder, the acromion. So I want you to palpate it first so you feel what I'm talking about. So go ahead and put your tuning fork down and just take your hand and just explore the corner of the shoulder. So here's your AC joint, right? That bump that sticks up that you always see sticking up on people, right? Those 2 bumps towards the outside of the shoulder. Just fall off of it more laterally. And you can feel, oh yeah, there's like a really flat ridge there, right? Like a plateau. And so we're going to put the tuning fork right on that. Again, it's not one point. This is a pretty wide bone. There's some surface area to this. Just choose one spot and just go for it. So we're going to go there now. Grabbing your tuning fork. Right on the plateau. Right, so you can see it's kind of midway across the shoulder, right? I'm not forward, I'm not back, I'm right in the middle. Okay, we're going to do those 3 points along the superior aspect of the spine of the scap, if it's comfortable for you, and that 1 point inferiorly to the spine of the scap. But if this is super uncomfortable for your body, just skip it. Okay, so just palpating, you were at the acromion, and now you're going to follow that bone and travel backwards, and you'll feel as you push down towards the floor, there's a bone there that stops your fingers from falling to the ground. That's the spine of your scap. So we're going to just work 1, 2, 3 of those points with the tuning fork now. So just getting right on top of that ridge. And so I think you can see on the camera how I found like a place to nest the fork, right? The fork is leaning into that bone. The bone is supporting the fork from underneath. And working point number 2, just moving a little bit towards midline on top of the spine of the scap. And we're going to do 1 more point. And again, if you're not able to reach this on your own, it's no problem. You leave it out, or maybe you can find a partner who can help you with this. And we're going to do 1 more. Towards midline, still on top of that bone. And now we're going to do just a singular point underneath the spine of the scapula, inferior to the spine of the scapula. So here's the spine, and now I'm going to fall under it. And you'll feel you have all this meat under here, and you'll feel that wing, that scapula, underneath the muscle. So here's the bony ridge, right? I'm pulling up on it now, but I could choose any of this surface area here on which to use the tuning fork. So just pick one spot for now and just put the fork in there and enjoy. There, maybe you can see better like that. Good. That was the shoulder girdle. Now, because that's kind of a weird place to end the session, especially for those of you who can't necessarily reach your shoulder blades, I always like to end with some amount of symmetry. I like to end midline on the body if possible. I just like that it sort of symbolically and energetically brings the 2 halves of the body together. So the spot that we're going to end on today is the space between the 2 SC joints, the space between the clavicles, the intraclavicular space. So again, just palpate here. You'll see there's like a little U shape here. And we refer to this as your suprasternal notch. And we call it a notch because it really is just a little hook that you can hang on to. We're going to put the fork right into that little notch, that little hook. Now, when you use the tuning fork here, you're not going directly in. You're going to feel like you're choking yourself. You're literally trying to hang on this. So you just find the lip right on top of the sternum, and you're thinking about pressing down towards the floor. It should feel pretty good. Let's try it. You can use either your right or your left hand. In fact, because this is our last point, let's do it twice, once with your right hand and once with your left hand. So I find the notch and I'm pressing straight down towards the ground. And just watch your face, watch your nose, watch your lips. These sternal points usually feel pretty incredible. They really change the breathing. You usually feel them really reverberate throughout the entire chest. So when we get to episode 4, which will be the next episode, we'll start to work all the way down the sternum and work on the front of the body, maybe working on some of the rib cage as well. Okay, so let's do that one more time using the other hand now. Striking the fork, finding the notch, and just sinking right into it. So not going back into the throat, going down, just sinking gently onto the bone. And I'm only sitting this rigidly so that you can kind of see my placement, but you should feel really relaxed here. Allowing yourself to accept in the vibration. Good. That was a pretty short session today, but just take a few moments again, as always, to assess how you're feeling, and maybe recalling to your mind which spots felt the most powerful for you today, and which spots you would like to revisit more on your own. That brings us to the end of Tuning Fork session number 3. I hope that you enjoyed this session, and I hope that you discovered 1 or 2 points that elicited a powerful response in your body. Please feel free to leave me some feedback about what you enjoyed or did not enjoy about this session. Please share any amazing personal experiences that you may be having in working with the OTTO 128 on your own. And of course, leave any questions or concerns that you might have. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe to my channel for more great videos. I release at least 1 new video every Tuesday morning. For those of you who are interested in therapeutic breathing, you might want to sign up for my Breath Basics 6-Day Challenge, which is a totally free 6-day training up on my website right now. I've included the link to sign up for that in the video description as well as on the end screen. And if you are ever in a position to help support my channel with a small financial contribution, please check out my Buy Me a Coffee page. I've dropped the link for that in the video description as well. I'm currently working on developing a membership program for you guys, so make sure you stay tuned. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm super excited for episode number 4, which I'll release in a few weeks. I hope to see you there.